It's long past midnight, and I'm back in this cold, empty kitchen, staring blankly at the clock face. This has been going on for many years now. I am alone, immersed in my thoughts, while my husband Stephen is completely busy with work or something else that I don't even know about. The wine glass is almost empty, but even that is not enough to drown out the oppressive silence. I once believed that this was a temporary stage, that we could find our way back to each other. But now I feel only bitterness and resentment. I tried to be patient, to support him, to be the perfect wife, or at least tried to be. And Stephen, it's like he's become a stranger, like I'm invisible to him. And tonight, when the wine had calmed my anger a little, a dark thought crept into my head. What if I had done something to make him pay attention to me again, so that he can see me for real? The next day, we gathered for the usual Sunday barbecue. Mason, Tom and David, Stephen's 3 best friends, are also here. They laugh and joke as if they don't have a single care. I watch them, how easily and carelessly they communicate with each other, how full of life. This is in stark contrast to Stephen, who has become cold, detached, not at all who he was before. And that dark thought that tormented me last night? She came back, this time with even more force. The idea begins to take shape, perverse and dangerous. What if I make them see me too? I start with Mason first. It looks completely innocent, just a normal conversation, but I know exactly what I'm doing. I deliberately run my hand over his arm, holding his gaze a little longer than necessary. He's a little surprised, but he doesn't pull away. On the contrary, he's smiling that flirtatious smile that sends a long-forgotten thrill through my body. The way he responds is mesmerizing, and I realize that I'm going to go even further. I just need to. Later that evening, after the barbecue, Stephen and I fight again. Everything repeats itself, his eternal work, his excuses and his complete lack of attention to me. I'm tired of pretending everything is fine, tired of being a patient wife. I snap, revealing my feelings to him, but, as always, he just shrugs it off, as if I hadn't said anything important. It's like talking to an empty wall, and the more I try to get through to him, the more he moves away. By the time it's over, I'm already fuming and I know exactly what I'm going to do. When Stephen falls asleep, I pick up the phone and text Mason. Something provocative, just to see how he would react. My heart is pounding in my chest as I wait for his reply, assuming he'll just ignore the message. But this does not happen. At first he hesitates a little, but soon the conversation turns into a flirtatious, almost playful channel. It's like a game, and I'm winning it. The feeling of power at this moment captures me. I got his attention, and I'm not going to stop. Over the next few days, I repeat the same thing with Tom and David. It turns out to be so easy, even too much. They all show the same interest, the same willingness to play this game. I'm carefully paving the way for what's going to happen. And the further I go, the more I realize that this is not about revenge on Stephen at all. It's about me. In order to regain the power and importance that I have lost over the years. The seeds of betrayal have already been sown, and there is no way back. The plan has begun its execution. Stephen stayed at work more often than usual, and this gave me the perfect opportunity to invite his friends to dinner. An ordinary meeting, at first glance nothing special. But there's a tension in the air tonight that only I can feel. There's something hidden between us, and I can see it in the way Mason, Tom, and David look at me. Their gazes linger a little longer than usual. They don't know what they're getting into yet. Dinner starts simply. Casual conversations, laughter filling the room. I made sure to pay attention to each of them separately, carefully sowing the seeds of desire in their minds. Every word, every slight gesture, a playful smile here, a long look there, was part of an elaborate game. They try to keep up appearances, but I notice cracks in their calm. The tension builds, and each of them holds their breath, waiting for what will happen next. And so, as if by accident, I spill wine on my dress. It comes out so easy that it almost seems too simple. I laugh, pretending to be a clumsy hostess, and apologize to change my clothes. Going upstairs, I leave the bedroom door ajar, knowing exactly what I'm doing. I can feel Mason's eyes on me, his curiosity outweighing his caution. Slowly taking off my dress, I enjoy every moment when the fabric slides off my body. In the reflection of the mirror, I notice him quickly avert his eyes, but I know he's seen enough. I can almost physically feel his inner struggle, Devotion to a friend is fighting with the desire that I have just ignited. When I come back down, the atmosphere in the room is already different. The laughter that was previously light is now saturated with something dark and intense. I suggest a game of cards, and they readily agree. But it's not just a game. I'm in full control of the situation, and I know exactly how to handle them. My joking bets, meaningful comments, and light touches only make them more nervous. I can see the excitement flickering in their eyes, and I know they're hooked. Each of them gets more and more entangled in the web that I weave. The game continues, but it's not about the cards at all. It all revolves around how I lean closer to Tom, letting my body lightly touch him. The way I whisper in his ear makes him blush. David notices this, and jealousy flares up on his face. This only increases the tension, spurring the expectation. They're all on edge, holding their breath, waiting for my next move. And I decide. I suggest we move to the hot tub. My idea was met with enthusiasm. Men are trying to hide their impatience. I put on a revealing swimsuit, fully aware of the reaction it will cause. When I go out, their eyes are fixed on me, they can't take their eyes off. In the hot atmosphere of the jacuzzi, the lines between innocent playfulness and outright seduction are quickly erased. I feel my power over them growing stronger. The evening is far from over, and the real game is just beginning. The warmth from the water envelopes us like a passionate embrace, but this is nothing compared to the hot wave that is growing between us. I sit right between Mason and Tom, feeling our bodies touch under the swirling jets. The tension grows, it becomes almost unbearable, but this only increases the wave of excitement. I lean closer, and my warm breath touches their necks. I whisper words to them that make them shudder. They try to resist, but I see that control is slipping away. They want it as much as I do, and that's exactly what I was hoping for. I'm taking the first decisive step because I know they won't dare. I take Mason's hand and place it on my hip. He hesitates, his breathing falters, but I feel the moment when he gives up. His hand gradually rises higher, and a wave of electric tremor engulfs me. Tom and David are watching us, surprise and passion intertwined on their faces. The tension is so strong that it seems almost tangible, and I realize that they are exactly where I wanted them to be. Wasting no time, I turn to Tom and kiss him gently on the lips. He's clearly caught off guard, but he doesn't pull away. On the contrary, his arms wrap around my waist, pulling me closer. The kiss deepens, and I feel an unbridled energy permeate both of us. David, staying away, desperately wants to be a part of what is happening, and moves closer, his eyes darkening with a mixture of jealousy and passion. The atmosphere around us is heating up, each fueling the other's desire. I can't stop now when the line I've been thinking about all night is already so close. Rising from the hot tub, I let the water flow over my body, every movement carefully thought out, every look full of determination. I don't need to talk. My body has already said it all. I look at them, meeting each gaze in turn, and there is temptation in my voice when I invite them inside. Their looks make it clear to me that they will follow me wherever it leads. Inside, the atmosphere changes dramatically, from hot anticipation to something darker and more primal. I lead them into the bedroom, and the realization of what is about to happen rolls over me like an electric charge. In one smooth motion, I take off my wet swimsuit and stand naked in front of them. For a moment, time seems to freeze. They look at me, their eyes darken with desire, and restraint disappears. A cocktail of strength and vulnerability is raging inside me from having brought us all to this point of no return. The line has been crossed, and there is no way back. The night is about to turn into something wild and out of control, and I'm ready. This is what I needed, to feel alive again, desired, and make Stephen see what he had ignored for so long. Desire takes hold of us all. He gives in, penetrating me with guilt mixed with acute pleasure, and I feel my own resolve crumble as Mason moves inside me. Tom grabs my mouth, stifling the moans that come out with every move he makes. David's hands are on me too, his touch firm, commanding as he caresses my body. There is a chaotic interweaving of bodies in the room, a mixture of sweat and despair, each of them immersed in a primal act that has captured us all. The intensity of the sensations is overwhelming. My mind is spinning from what is happening. Every touch, every push, seems to send waves throughout my body, and the reality of what is happening is balancing on the edge of consciousness. But the excitement that brought me here is starting to wane, and the weight of the night is starting to weigh on me. What was once a seduction game has turned into something dark and desperate. The old playfulness has been replaced by an insatiable hunger that knows no boundaries. Each of them pushes their limits, and mine too. Excitement is still in the air, but now it is mixed with something new, something very similar to regret. The night dragged on, the bodies intertwined, and the sensations covered me in waves as they took turns making love to me. Every man was driven forward by an insatiable need that both captured and frightened me. I felt my strength leaving me, and all the power I once possessed was crumbling under their ruthless onslaught. My body ached, my thoughts were confused, and somewhere in the depths of my soul, fear was born. I thought that I would regain control, but gradually realized that I had completely lost it. The climax came in the final frenzy, when all three of them possessed me at the same time. The pleasure was so intense that it was barely bearable, but the emotional burden seemed even heavier. When it was over, I was left lying there, panting and exhausted, my body aching from the incredible force of what we had done. There was a heavy silence in the room, broken only by our labored breathing. The reality of what was happening slowly dawned on me, the weight of the night pressing down on me like a leaden blanket. I stared at the ceiling, and the realization of the consequences gradually filled every corner of my mind. The excitement disappeared, giving way to a blank emptiness for which there was no exact name. The oppressive silence weighed on us all. The men were too exhausted to speak. All I could do was lie there, feeling pain in my body and confusion in my head, as the full gravity of what had happened dawned on me. The first rays of dawn were breaking through the curtains, pale and unforgiving. I lay motionless and silent, staring at the ceiling, until the reality of what had happened completely engulfed me. The men, having dressed, no longer laughed or joked, only a heavy, suffocating silence enveloped us. They avoided looking at me and at each other, the weight of our actions pressing down on us all like a huge stone. What we did, what I did, destroyed something between them that couldn't be repaired. The rapture of the night disappeared, giving way to an emptiness that echoed in my chest. Mason left first, muttering an awkward goodbye, and headed for the door. Tom and David followed, their faces contorted with guilt and shame. When the door closed behind them, I felt the sharp pain of loneliness. The silence in the house became unbearable. I was left alone, truly alone, and the weight of my actions fell on me, suffocating and inexorable. I was the initiator of all this, and now I have to live with the consequences. I trudged into the bathroom, hoping that a hot shower would wash away the remnants of last night. The water burned my skin, but no amount of trying to wash away the past could erase the guilt that had settled firmly in my heart. It became a constant reminder that I had destroyed not only my marriage, I had destroyed something in myself that probably could not be returned. Stephen returned home later that morning, completely unaware of the storm that was raging inside me. I forced a smile, trying to hide my confusion as I greeted him. The contrast between his trusting behavior and my betrayal was almost unbearable. I felt like a stranger in my own house. My heart was pounding wildly as I tried to behave as usual. But everything had changed, and only I knew it. Guilt began to consume me, corroding my thoughts. I couldn't look Stephen in the eye anymore. My touch became uncertain, and the old confidence evaporated, giving way to a nervous tension that I could not get rid of. Stephen felt that something was wrong. It was evident in his gaze, in the questions he wanted to ask. But every time he tried to find out the truth, I found excuses, stress, fatigue, anything to keep him from digging deeper. But the guilt remained, hidden beneath the surface, and I knew that sooner or later everything would collapse. My relationship with Mason, Tom and David has changed a lot. The companionable ease that we once shared has been replaced by strained smiles and awkward silence. They try to avoid being alone with me, and every day the unspoken tension between us only increases. We've all changed, and there's no turning back anymore. I begin to distance myself from my friends, isolating myself in fear that someone will reveal my secret. Paranoia becomes a constant companion. It presses on me, making every sound and every look seem like a threat. I live on the edge, flinching at any noise. Guilt and fear of exposure permeate all areas of my life. Stephen notices a change in my behavior. It was inevitable. He asks questions, but I brush them off, citing stress and fatigue. Although he is not convinced, so far he does not insist. But I realize it's only a matter of time before he starts putting it all together, and the thought scares me. My paranoia escalates when I receive a text from Tom asking me to meet and talk. My heart stops. I'm sure he wants to tell me everything. However, at the meeting, he assures me that he will not tell me anything. The whole conversation is full of tension, as if unspoken accusations and oppressive guilt hang in the air. We break up, but I leave with an even greater sense of anxiety, realizing that we are all on the verge of a breakdown. Soon the nightmares began to torment. Every night I relive the events in vivid, terrifying detail. In dreams, men are no longer my friends, their images are impersonal, and their hands are rude and merciless. I wake up in a cold sweat. The line between dream and reality is becoming more and more blurred. The feeling of guilt does not let me go even at night, not giving me the slightest chance to escape. Stephen's suspicions are growing as I shut myself down more and more and behave more inappropriately. He begins to follow my actions imperceptibly, noticing my nervousness and avoidance of certain topics. The tension in our relationship is becoming palpable. Stephen feels that something is wrong, but he can't figure out what it is yet. The atmosphere in the house becomes unbearable. Our every conversation is tinged with unspoken tension and distrust. At one of the dinners with friends, among whom were Mason, Tom, and David, the tension reaches its peak. I'm trying to maintain a semblance of normality, but the weight of our shared secret is weighing on everyone. Stephen watches me closely, noticing the nervous glances I exchange with the men. His anxiety grows, and I feel the walls around me shrink. Guilt begins to manifest itself physically. Constant headaches, insomnia, and nausea have become a part of my life. I do my best to maintain a semblance of well-being at home and in public, but my energy is drained by the pressure of secrets. I'm thinking about confessing to Stephen to put an end to the torment, but the fear of losing everything is holding me back. I keep lying, burying the guilt deeper and deeper, but it gradually destroys me. Mason gets in touch, expressing his regret and guilt. He offers to meet to discuss what happened, but I refuse, afraid to reopen the wounds. This conversation unsettles me even more, and the realization that we all suffer equally because of our actions drives me to despair. We are all trapped, and it is impossible to get out of it. Tom, unable to cope with the feeling of guilt, begins to move away from both me and the whole company. He's becoming more and more withdrawn, avoiding any meetings and finding excuses to stay away from me. This only increases my isolation, making me more acutely aware of the consequences of my actions. David, on the contrary, tries to act as if nothing had happened, but his behavior is becoming more unstable. He starts drinking heavily, and his guilt manifests itself in self-destruction. I watch his fall with a perverse sense of responsibility, realizing that it was our actions that triggered this chain reaction of destruction. The paranoia reaches its peak when I start to find anonymous emails in my inbox. These notes contain vague threats hinting that someone knows about our affair. The fear of exposure consumes me, and I live in constant anxiety. I'm on edge all the time, feeling the walls around me shrink, and the weight of what I've done presses down on me more and more. Finally, Stephen decides to talk directly and demands an explanation. He noticed the changes in my behavior and the tension in my relationship with his friends. I try to deny everything, but I feel like my lie is bursting at the seams. Stephen's frustration is growing, and the tension in our relationship is reaching a new peak. My paranoia is getting worse. I'm sure Stephen is close to understanding everything. I start checking my phone all the time, deleting messages, and avoiding contact with Mason, Tom, and David. The stress of living a double life becomes unbearable, pushing me to the limit. I'm sinking into deeper and deeper lies, and there's no way out. During one of our particularly heated arguments, Stephen finally accuses me of cheating. These words hit me like a physical blow, and I find myself stunned, despite all my excuses. The accusation deeply hurts, and after this argument, we both remain emotionally exhausted. Stephen is determined to find out the truth, and I can see it in his eyes. It's just a matter of time. Memories begin to come back, sometimes triggered by the most ordinary things, a melody, a smell, or a familiar place. They bring me back to that night. A storm of emotions seizes my mind, intensifying feelings of guilt and regret. It's like I'm reliving everything, and the line between the past and the present is gradually blurred in a fog of shame. Mason can't take it anymore. He decides to confess to Stephen and calls me to warn me. Panic grips me, the icy realization that everything I've been hiding is about to be revealed. I beg Mason to stop, but he's adamant. He can't live with this lie anymore, and I know I can't stop him. Stephen begins to collect more and more evidence, comparing inconsistencies in my stories and my behavior with his friends. Suspicion turns to cold certainty, and I see anger and despair building in him. The realization that his wife and best friends have betrayed him becomes a blow for him that he cannot recover from. Another anonymous letter arrives, this time more explicit. It says that the author knows everything and that it's only a matter of time before Stephen finds out the truth. The fear of exposure grips me completely, and I begin to think about extreme measures to protect myself. The walls around me are shrinking, and I have almost no way out. My mental state continues to deteriorate. I'm drifting away from everyone, including Stephen, unable to cope with the growing sense of guilt and fear. The once self-confident, cheerful woman has disappeared. Her place has been taken by a shadow, haunted by her actions. Mason decides to talk to Stephen, intending to confess. But Stephen stops him. He has already understood everything. The truth has been revealed. Their confrontation becomes heated and emotional. Stephen feels betrayed by the man he considered a brother. Everything is destroyed, and there is no return anymore. When Stephen returned home after talking to Mason, the tension was so thick that it seemed like it could be cut with a knife. His face was a mask of restrained anger. I knew that the moment of truth had come, and I was preparing for the inevitable consequences. Stephen met me face to face, laying out all the facts he knew. The conversation was full of accusations, tears, and rage. I tried to justify my actions, but Stephen wouldn't listen anymore. His heart was broken by betrayal, and nothing I said could change that. The conversation ended with Stephen leaving, unable to stay under the same roof with me. I was left alone in our house, and the reality of my actions completely overwhelmed me. The full weight of what I had done fell on me. I lost everything: my marriage, friends, and myself. The house was plunged into darkness and silence, and I was overcome with regret, realizing that I had ruined my own life. The story, which began with a thirst for attention and power, ended in complete collapse, and I can only blame myself for this.